her feet firmly. Hello, boy.
The Honeymooners was one of America's greatest comedy shows. Jackie Gleason played Ralph, the loud bus driver with big dreams. Audrey Meadows was his smart, quick-witted wife, Alice. Art Carney played Ed Norton, the goofy neighbor who always made people laugh. When they appeared on screen together, it looked like magic. Fans thought these three actors must be close friends in real life too. But something strange happened after the show ended. Art Carney disappeared from their lives completely. He never went to reunions. He never spoke publicly about his co-stars. Most shocking of all, he never talked to Audrey Meadows again, not even once. This silence lasted for decades until both actors died. Why would someone so important to the show just vanish like that? The answer has been hidden for years. When The Honeymooners first aired in 1955, it became hugely popular right away. The show only made 39 episodes, but they were so good that people still watch them today. Americans loved watching Ralph and Alice argue and make up every week. Ralph was a working-class guy who always had crazy plans to get rich. Alice was patient but sharp, always ready with a clever comeback when Ralph got too carried away. Then there was Ed Norton, Ralph's best friend who lived upstairs. Norton was quirky and kind-hearted, with weird habits that made him hilarious. Art Carney played this character perfectly. He could make people laugh without saying much at all. His timing was so good that he won an Emmy Award and became famous overnight. When viewers watched the three actors together, they seemed like they really cared about each other. But behind the scenes, things were very different. Jackie Gleason was loud and unpredictable. Sometimes he could be difficult to work with. Audrey Meadows was confident and could handle whatever came her way, but Art Carney was quiet and kept to himself. He did his job well and never caused problems, but he didn't socialize with the other actors. As soon as filming ended each day, he would leave. People who worked on the show said that Carney and Meadows barely had a relationship outside of their scenes together. They didn't hang out after work. No one ever saw them at parties or events together. Even years later, when TV shows did special programs about the Honeymooners, Art Carney was either missing or said nothing at all. In interviews, Audrey Meadows often talked warmly about the show and her co-stars. She had nice things to say about Jackie Gleason and what working on the show meant to her career. But Carney rarely returned these kind words. When he did talk about the Honeymooners, he usually only mentioned Jackie, almost never Audrey. The most telling moment came in 1996 when Audrey Meadows died. Many people expected Art Carney to say something about the woman he had worked with on such a famous show, but he never did. No statement, no tribute, nothing at all. Some fans felt hurt by this silence. Others thought it was just because Carney was a very private person. But for those paying attention, it raised a big question. Why would someone choose complete silence over showing respect for a former colleague? The tension between Carney and Meadows might have started even before the Honeymooners ended. Both were professional actors who did their jobs well and didn't cause trouble on set. But being professional doesn't mean being friends. According to people who knew about the show behind the scenes, working on the Honeymooners was more complicated than it looked. Jackie Gleason controlled everything about the show. He rarely rehearsed and often changed the script at the last minute. He expected the other actors to keep up with these changes. Audrey Meadows adapted well to this style. She had experience with live television and could match Gleason's unpredictable way of working. But for Art Carney, this environment was overwhelming. Carney struggled with anxiety and alcoholism his whole life, though he hid these problems from the public during the show's run. He never missed a performance, but he had a hard time dealing with the pressure of live television, Gleason's demands, and the unpredictable nature of the set. These struggles may have affected how he interacted with the people around him, including Audrey Meadows. Some sources say that Meadows' sharp comic timing sometimes overshadowed Carney during rehearsals, which created subtle competition between them. Others believe that Gleason, who liked to control everything, kept the actors somewhat separated from each other. He may have discouraged them from becoming too close. It's also worth noting that Meadows talked openly about her experiences on the show in interviews, something Carney almost never did. When Carney gave interviews, which was rare, his answers were short and safe. He avoided talking about his fellow actors. When reporters pressed him about his co-stars, He would change the subject back to the characters or the scripts, not the real people behind them. This emotional distance created an invisible barrier that Audrey Meadows may have wanted to cross but never could. When the Honeymooners ended, Carney essentially disappeared from that world. There were no wrap parties for him, no tearful goodbyes, no promises to stay in touch. He simply walked away and closed that chapter of his life. What happened in the years after the show ended made the situation even more puzzling. Jackie Gleason went back to doing variety shows. Audrey Meadows continued acting in movies and television. Art Carney didn't literally disappear. He kept acting and even won an Academy Award in 1975 for a movie called Harry and Tonto. This proved he was a serious, talented actor, but when it came to the Honeymooners, he vanished completely from that world. He was invited to reunions, but always said no politely. When people asked him to appear in documentaries about the show, he refused. When his former co-stars talked publicly about their time together, Carney's absence was obvious. Even Jackie Gleason, who had a big ego and his own problems, spoke warmly about Carney in interviews. He called Carney a genius and said his comedy skills were a big reason the show was so successful. Audrey Meadows also praised his timing and subtle brilliance. But Art always stayed silent. Never mean, but always quiet. Some people think Carney had trouble with the fame that the Honeymooners brought him. He had never wanted to be a celebrity. During the height of his popularity, Carney reportedly dealt with severe anxiety and depression. Being famous only made these problems worse. He once said that all the attention made him uncomfortable and that he preferred it when people didn't know who he was. This might explain why he distanced himself from the show that made him famous. But what about his relationship with Audrey? That's where his silence becomes most mysterious. According to a producer from Jackie Gleason's show, Carney and Meadows never spoke after the series ended. Not during tribute shows, not at events they both attended, not even when they were both asked to participate in Honeymooners retrospectives. They declined separately and never appeared together again. When Audrey Meadows died in 1996, fans expected at least a brief statement from her former co-star. But Carney, who was still alive and well at the time, said nothing. No message, no acknowledgement, no comment to reporters. Was it grief, guilt, or had they grown so far apart that speaking out would have seemed fake? No one knows for sure. While Art Carney chose silence, Audrey Meadows occasionally opened up about her experiences, especially in her later years. She wrote a book called Love Alice in 1994, just 2 years before she died. In it, she wrote fondly about the Honeymooners, about Jackie Gleason's demanding nature, and about the fast-paced world of live television. But her comments about Art Carney were noticeably brief. She called him brilliant and gentle, but stopped short of describing any real friendship. In a lesser-known interview from the early 1990s, when asked directly about her relationship with Carney after the show, she paused, looked down, and gave a carefully measured response. "We worked well together," she said, "but we were different people. I don't think Art was ever truly comfortable around anyone, not even himself." That quiet observation struck many as a reference to his lifelong battles with anxiety, alcoholism, and emotional distance. It wasn't meant as an insult. It was a reflection from a woman who had worked alongside him for years, sharing the stage and the spotlight, yet had never truly known him as a person. Even Jackie Gleason, who had arguments with just about everyone, reportedly stayed in closer contact with Audrey Meadows than Carney ever did. In another radio interview, Meadows admitted she sometimes wondered if Carney had felt misunderstood, not by the public, but by his own castmates. "There was a sadness in his eyes," she said, "a kind of longing. But he never let anyone get close enough to ask about it." Fans often assume that the casts of iconic shows become like families off camera. But the Honeymooners wasn't that kind of set. There was warmth and mutual respect, but there was also distance, and Carney seemed to prefer it that way. According to Meadows, rehearsals were efficient and polite, and often followed by everyone going their separate ways. No low-nang dinners, no after-parties. "We clocked in, we clocked out," she once said. It was magic on screen, but quiet behind the scenes. Meadows also admitted that she and Carney never spoke after the final episode aired. Not even when Gleason died in 1987. Not when the show was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. not even when fans campaigned for a formal reunion. When asked if she ever reached out, she answered, "I thought about it many times." But Art had already left that part of his life behind. The most heartbreaking part was that she seemed to accept it. "You have to understand," she told an interviewer, "Art was a very private man. He needed space. And I don't think he knew how to look back without pain." Pain from what? That's what fans and even those closest to the show never figured out. But there's one clue that adds another layer to this mystery, involving a very public breakdown that happened a few years after the show ended. In 1961, just a few years after the Honeymooners wrapped, Art Carney suffered what his family later described as an emotional collapse. The public didn't know about it at the time. To the outside world, Carney was simply taking a break from acting. But people close to him said he was in a very dark place, battling depression, anxiety, and a drinking problem that had begun quietly years earlier. His bright comedic energy on screen had hidden an internal struggle that had been building steadily. Some people thought the intense pressure of live television and sudden fame triggered his breakdown. Others believed it went deeper, that Carney, the son of a newspaperman from Mount Vernon, New York, was never built for stardom. He was a perfectionist and a deeply sensitive man. The spotlight never felt safe to him. Even the applause from live audiences reportedly made him feel more exposed than appreciated. One biographer noted that Carney hated conflict. Even on set, he would shut down rather than argue, retreating behind polite smiles and quiet chuckles. This is why his comedic timing seemed so effortless. He hid behind the character of Ed Norton. But the more famous Norton became, the more Art Carney seemed to disappear as a person. Friends remembered how at cast parties or celebration dinners, he would quietly excuse himself early, often leaving before anyone noticed he was gone. He was married during the Honeymooners run, but his personal life became increasingly troubled. He and his wife eventually divorced, got back together, and divorced again. At one point, Carney was so isolated that even his children described him as a ghost in his own home. The pressure of keeping up public appearances, combined with his inner struggles, damaged many of his closest relationships. During this difficult time, Carney reportedly cut ties with many former colleagues. While Gleason tried to reach out and Audrey Meadows made appearances at various industry events, Carney stayed away. No red carpets, no reunion specials, no retrospectives. He turned down offers that would have paid him millions simply because he wanted no part in reliving what he saw as a closed chapter. When asked why he distanced himself from the Honeymooners, his answer was always vague. "It was a great time," he once said, "but it was only a time. I don't live in the past." But there was one quote buried in an old radio interview that hinted at something more personal. When asked if he kept in touch with his old co-stars, Carney replied, "Sometimes things end, and you don't realize the chapter has closed until you look back and realize no one turned the page." Was this regret, a quiet nod to some unspoken conflict, or simply the voice of a man who never truly felt connected to the world he helped create? Either way, his silence left a hole in the Honeymooners' legacy. In 1996, as Audrey Meadows battled the FE, in all stages of lung cancer, she granted one last interview to a close friend and journalist. She had lived a full life beyond the Honeymooners, becoming a successful banker and advocate for women in business. But inevitably, the conversation turned back to her early television years and to Art Carney. She was visibly frail, her voice quieter than usual. But when asked about Carney, she sat up a little straighter. "I always hoped we would speak again," she said. "Even just once. There was nothing bitter between us. Not really. But sometimes silence is louder than an argument." She paused, then added, "I think Art blamed himself for something. I don't know what it was, but I think it hurt him to be near anything that reminded him of who he used to be." When pressed for more details, Audrey simply smiled and said, "People don't leave friendships for no reason, but not all reasons are spoken." And just like that, she let the subject go. No accusation, no drama, just quiet acceptance of a friendship that never got closure. Some have theorized that the pressures of the show, the relentless schedule, the lack of control Carney had compared to Gleason, wore him down. Others believe there may have been an off-screen disagreement that was never made public. But the truth is, no one knows. Carney himself never addressed it directly. And when he passed away in 2003, any answers he might have had were buried with him. What remains is a mystery that fans have tried to solve for decades. Why did Art Carney, the man who made America laugh week after week, walk away from the Honeymooners family without a word? Was it personal pain, professional frustration, or something deeper? The truth may never be fully known. The silence between Audrey Meadows and Art Carney became its own kind of story, not one of scandal or betrayal, but of two brilliant performers whose connection ended not with a fight, but with a fading echo. For fans of the Honeymooners, this mystery has lingered like a shadow behind all the laughter. We remember Carney as the lovable sewer worker with a heart of gold, trading jokes with Jackie Gleason while Audrey Meadows rolled her eyes in the background. Their chemistry was timeless, their rhythm flawless. Yet once the curtain fell, it was as if a switch flipped. Art Carney withdrew not just from the show, but from its people. He never spoke badly about anyone. He never aired complaints, but he also never looked back. Maybe that's the most haunting part. Silence leaves room for imagination, for doubt, for wonder. Was Carney haunted by something that happened during the show's production? Did he carry guilt over a moment, a comment, a decision? Or did he simply need distance from a time that brought more pressure than joy? Audrey Meadows never expressed anger about the situation, only sadness, a kind of wistful acknowledgement that something precious had been lost. And neither one ever explained why. In a world that now thrives on sharing every detail of our lives, the quiet between these two legends stands out even more. It proves that not every disagreement is dramatic. Some are subtle, slow, and final. When it happens between people as iconic and beloved as Carney and Meadows, it feels personal to fans. Like we, the audience, were part of that friendship too. They made us laugh. They made us care. And without even knowing it, they left us with one last unscripted mystery. No punchline, no happy ending, just a question hanging in the air. What really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? The story of Art Carney's silence may never be fully understood, but it serves as a reminder that even our most beloved entertainers are complex human beings with their own struggles and secrets. Sometimes the most profound mysteries are found not in what people say, but in what they choose never to say at all.